inspired. Transform your life. Welcome to Best Interest Radio.
So today we have Kim Sneath, and Kim is a clutter coach, and we actually recorded a podcast back in January, but the microphone quality that I had at the time was not very good. So we're re-recording today, so I really appreciate her coming back on, and she has a lot of valuable information to share. When I first heard of a clutter coach, I had never heard of it before, so it was really interesting to hear what she does. And I remember one thing we talked about in the first one that actually wasn't recorded was how, of course, I went through my weight loss transformation, lost over 100 pounds, and cured some mental and physical health conditions. And I always say that's a physical representation of what transformed internally. And interestingly enough, Kim said, well, clutter is actually a representation of what's going on internally. So welcome to the show, Kim. And I guess we can just start with, for people who don't know, what is a clutter coach and what do you do?
Oh, well, thanks so much, Jordan. Great to be here again. No problem. So what I do is I really help busy women eliminate overwhelm and get organized from the inside out. You can't really have one without the other. People are often asking me, how do we make this last? How does it stick? And that's often the missing piece, is you can't just organize the stuff. You have to help the person with the stuff break through the emotions that hold them to this clutter.
Oh, so you help people with more than just clutter. You got to help them break through any sort of emotions that might be attached to it as well?
That's right, and that's why I call myself a clutter coach. It's much more than a professional organizer.
Yeah, exactly. In the same sense where I might help somebody lose weight, but I actually, it goes deeper than that. I help them go beyond the limitations and the restrictions and the emotions that go along with that as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I remember from last time we were talking, we could get into how, like I said in the beginning, clutter can be a representation of what's going on with what's inside you. And I remember you mentioned how something that's if you have clutter in your kitchen, that might have you might have some struggles going on with weight loss or food in general. And I know you gave an example of clutter in the bedroom, around the bed and stuff like that. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about how those might interconnect and what you've noticed throughout your own coaching experience?
Yeah, well, clutter is not only the physical manifestation of what's blocked or not working in your life, it's unmade decisions. And when those build up over years, of course, it causes problems elsewhere. So often my clients have health issues, or they struggle with weight or relationships. It's a blockage. And where it's located in people's houses is often a surprise to people when I bring that up and I see where it is. And then I link it to, I start them on a life coaching questionnaire, life coaching through your clutter. Usually the little bubbles of life, there's about 12 of them, like relationship, career, finances, and so on. Usually they connect. So if they identify, say they've marked from a 0 to 10 on their career and they've chosen a 3, well, perhaps there's not a lot of flow in their house. Perhaps a lot of areas like, say, a back room that's just a spare room that maybe they been really wanting to get out of their current job and start their own business. And that's all blocked up. And that room is the junk room. So usually there's a correlation.
Yeah, totally. And just to clarify for the listener, clutter is different than hoarding.
Absolutely, yeah. So anybody who has any issues with hoarding, usually it wouldn't be somebody listening who is the hoarder, but knows of a hoarder, you can go to the professional organizers in Canada, look them up online, of which I used to be a member when I was in Toronto. And if you're listening in the States, it's NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers. And there's ones that are specifically trained to deal with hoarding disorder, and it is a whole disorder, and it's not what I deal with, but there is help for you. So look there.
And so now that we have that down, is there a difference between clutter and just a mess and not being tidy?
Absolutely, yeah. There's two types of disorganization. You're either chronically disorganized or you're situationally disorganized. Neither one of those are just a mess. So let's just deal with just a mess. Maybe you just haven't been motivated lately. Maybe you've even been a little down, or maybe you've just been overwhelmed by a big project at work, or maybe you're new to having a family. You probably have a mess. And if you haven't really had that before in your life, or not very often, that's just a mess. You just need to tidy up. Maybe a solution is you need to hire a cleaning lady. Whatever it is, it's not really probably related to clutter. If that goes on for more than a month, maybe up to 3 months, if you're really pushing on some big deadline, then yeah, that starts to get into either situational or chronic. And so I have a questionnaire for both of those types, and you can go through those 10 or 12 questions. You answer yes or no. And generally, if you are situationally disorganized, it's because a situation has come up in your life. It caused a big change in your life that's either mentally or spiritually or physically manifesting in clutter. That could be divorce, having twins, moving, that type of thing, or health issues. Chronically is you've always just been like, as a kid, your room was a mess. Your locker at school was a mess. You never really have felt, you'd never call yourself an organized person. Does that make sense, the two differences?
Yeah, totally. You just described me growing up. I was never really an organized person, even though, like, my mom might have been way more organized. I guess I was certainly not at all. My room was always a mess, and that carried forward until I was probably about 25, and I started like actually taking action to organize my life. And it's kind of funny because when I organized my life, all of a sudden, like, my physical surroundings became organized, and I started to clear the clutter around me. I mean, one of the realizations I had when I was cleaning up my life in all these different aspects. I mean, just to give the listener who might not know, like, I obviously had food addiction. I was 285 pounds, like 115 pounds heavier. I had depression, anxiety, ADHD. I had little alcohol addiction, a six-pack far too often type thing. And so, one of the things I noticed, I looked around my house one day, and I saw the mess in my room and stuff, and I'm like, I have to clean this up. Like, this is like, I have to clean my life up. I have to clean all this up. And I connected the two. I connected cleaning up the problems I had internally to cleaning up my physical surroundings. And the more I worked on each, like, they reflected into each other. So the more I organized my room, the more I organized my life. The more I organized my life, the more I organized my surroundings. And so I can totally relate to that. I remember you saying how a lot of this, any sort of problems with disorganization, is learned behavior. I mean, ultimately, any sort of thing that we do in our life now, it's all learned behavior, whether you learn it through your parents and what you witness, or just your habits growing up.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you told that story for a couple of reasons. It is learned behavior, and what that means, the good news is you can unlearn it and you can learn new habits. So getting organized and feeling on top of your life, and claiming more hours in your week, feeling more in control, is entirely possible. It's completely teachable. My clients learn all the time. And everything you just listed about all the things that you had, from ADHD to all the other emotional aspects, you just listed my ideal clients. Those are the people that call me. So if you have one or any of those feelings, emotions, issues, that's why it's so hard to get organized. You can't just tackle one. and not affect the other.
Exactly. And yeah, it really is real. I mean, I'm an example of it as well. And you never even worked with me as a coach, but I guess I essentially coached myself in a way through my own life experiences that brought me through that journey. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting to me, and that's why I'm fascinated with what you do. I remember you telling me last time something very interesting, and if you remember, could you tell me the story of your friend who had I think she had, from what I remember, like a barricade around her bed?
Well, okay. So a friend of mine invited me and another friend over for dinner. We're all coaches, so we all have coachy type conversations, and it kind of went there after dinner. We were all talking about different aspects of our life. And this particular friend, I'd never known in a relationship, but I've always known that she very much wanted to be married and have children. And she's still like young and in her 30s. But she hadn't been in a major relationship. So it was starting to build up um, in her, I guess, in her mind and in her heart. And I had never been over to her place before. And while her place was small, especially the kitchen, it was really functional and she had it all really well set up. Where we ate dinner around the dining table, I think she had some nice dishes from her mom and in a little cabinet. That was lovely. Let's go sit in the living room after, we're all chatting, very comfortable. Then you go to her bedroom and she had a desk in there because it was a small apartment. She was working through a project at work, so it required a lot of paper. But there was additional plastic bins of files of papers, and they were around the base of her bed. And then there was kind of a shelf in a nook on the other side of her bed, and that was a lot of stuff on there and lots of paper. And when I asked her about that, she said, well, there's nowhere else to put it. And I turned my head and I said, right over there under the sort of eave, there was a nook, and she had some stuff in there, but didn't really use it, didn't really need it. When we talked about that and that she could put it there, put a curtain across, I looked in another closet. There was also some options there. So sure, she didn't see the possibilities, but the biggest thing I said is, what are you afraid of in bringing a relationship into your life? Because you literally have a barricade of papers and bins around your bed. And her eyes just opened up, and yeah, and my other friend was like,
Aha!
bingo.
Yeah.
And I could say that to a friend, but I now will highlight that in my clients' homes. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is where you choose to put your clutter is an indication of what's going on somewhere in your mind or your heart.
Yeah, totally. And I love how you use the term, like, clutter is unmade decisions.
Mhm.
And you really have to, it's about organizing and making decisions for yourself. Because if you don't make a decision, you're just going to essentially live life aimlessly. And, my life didn't begin to change until I actually made a decision to do so.
Yeah, and it feels so monumental and so hard, but you make that one, and then you're like, oh, now I have to make another decision about what came out of that, and then you just one foot in front of the other, and then after a while, it becomes, like I like to say, focus on what you want, not what you fear. And when you do that, it makes you move forward.
Exactly. It gets the ball rolling. Another
Yeah,
thing too, what I find interesting is just using your friend's room as an example. You went in there and you said, well, I can go under there.
yeah,
Now, this is why it's so important to be able to take a step back and to look at the big picture of things. Because when you look at the big picture of things, then you can see where to put stuff, not just physically, but also mentally too, and decision making wise. If you take a step back and look at the big picture, you're going to see what decisions you should make, what stuff you should let go of. And yeah, and sometimes we're not able to see that ourselves. Sometimes we have to go through some maybe hard experiences in order for us to actually wake up to the bigger picture of things. And sometimes we might need a friend or family member or a coach to help us see the bigger picture.
I'm going to talk about that because many people do turn to an organized friend, in-law, neighbor, And I usually hear how that didn't work out so well. And here's why. That person who's organized, they organize for how they are and their learning type, and they don't even know why. They just do it the way they do it. The other thing is, when they're organized, they don't get why their friend isn't organized. And until they go into their friend's house and really start working through it, and then they start to hear the excuses, the fears, the overwhelm, the anxiety come up in their friend, they have no way to professionally deal with that. And so what often happens is they butt heads. Usually the session breaks down. It usually ends up making that person who has the clutter feel worse. It might even cause a rift in the friendship, certainly in families. Oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
couples, and it just doesn't work. You can try and you might succeed, but I'm telling you, after 13 years of doing this, I've heard that story many, many times.
I'm glad we talked about this, and that's a really important key point too. You just mentioned couples there. Do you work with couples?
I do. And I mean, you'll see everything I put out there is usually about women and for women because it's mostly women who call me. But when I do go over to the house, the husband might be there. Or sometimes he shows up during the session and I think they're kind of nervous. Are you going to throw my stuff away? So here's the thing about working with couples that I've learned and now do is they both want the same thing. So if they are going to do the session together, I get them stating those goals and hearing it. It's like a little bit of a marriage counseling session in the beginning is I make sure they hear each other. They usually don't. They usually interrupt each other halfway through answering that question. And I then interrupt them to say, wait, hold on. So then they hear each other. Then we go down and we know we're on the same path. It's let's clear this basement, let's say.
Yeah.
Let's get this organized. But they have two completely different approaches. And in general, women have to systematically go through each and everything because they're usually the ones with the clutter and have called me, and they're attached emotionally to it. And until they go through each piece, they're not going to feel at ease letting go of stuff. Whereas men look at this as, hey, let's be sitting out in the backyard enjoying a barbecue in 2 hours. Let's just haul it all out and dump it. You haven't used it in 2 years. So it's a completely different approach. And you can see why weekends where couples just decide to let's clear out the garage end up not going well. So what I do is I put them each on a different task in a different area, even different rooms. And I ping pong back and forth between them, and then they get to see each other's progress partway through. And you should see the difference in how they talk to each other with sort of polite tension in front of me in the beginning to honey, sweetie at the end. It's amazing because they see each other actually accomplishing it. They just don't know how to tell each other to do that.
That's so awesome. That's a really good example. I love that story.
It's really fun. It's
Yeah.
really fun to see them make that little journey, even in a 3-hour session.
Yeah, it would be. It's that situation sounds so familiar too.
Oh,
uh,
wow. I mean, I used to be married. I was in it
yeah,
too. Hey.
yeah. I think back
I
to
was the
my.
opposite. I was the one without the clutter, and my husband at the time, he was very sentimentally attached to many of his things and had a couple of hobbies. So
Yeah, and spring cleanup is coming soon too.
wow.
So, yeah, just putting this out there. But Kim Sneath, contact her if you want help with spring cleanup. You don't know what to do with stuff, and you're having trouble organizing this stuff. She's the person to go to. So.
Oh, thanks. Well, here's the thing about what's been happening, and I'm not sure when you're going to be posting this podcast, but we are about 6 weeks into the COVID situation here, end of April, and it has caused people are all at home and they're at home with their whole family. So any of the systems that aren't set up, they're bumping up against it every day and they can't ignore it anymore. The people who call me who have clutter, they don't spend a lot of time at home. They eat out. They get out of their house and escape it. They can't escape this now. Nobody can. And so there's a shift towards reaching out to me and finding out what can I do. I do have time. I am at home. And so my virtual clutter coaching business has increased, and I have clients all over the country. I even had a client inquiry from somebody in Wales. And what I do is I have a wonderful 4 week package. It's a 4 session package. And I'm having my clients are clearing their whole houses in a month, because not only do they have a once a week phone session with me, they've got me in their house for a month, answering their emails, email support, um, Pinterest board, inspiration and sharing of photos. It's really, really effective.
That's really good, because once you clear the clutter, it's important to sustain it too. So you're able to help with that, and to kind of you're going to be able to create long-lasting results because of that.
Well, here's the thing is I now have a 3-step method, and the method is inner chaos, outer chaos, life chaos. And so real change has to start from within, and most people don't have the tools or the strategies needed to effectively deal with the emotions that are responsible for the outer chaos. And so all those feelings of stress, pressure, overwhelm, when they try to physically deal with the clutter, it causes it's worse. So then they feel like a failure, and then nothing gets done, and then they feel like they've wasted their precious time. So we deal with that. Then when we continue with that inner work, and as you start to clear the mind, you can feel confident and at peace to be able to physically handle the stuff and make changes, make decisions from a place of strength and clarity. And so then I teach them how to do all that. So there's the how to. And then how do we make it stick? It's the life. So what are you doing with your time, your schedule? Is there overwhelm there? Has it been packed too full? Are you not setting boundaries on your family so that they're eating up all your time, and you can't do what you also want to do? So it's not about just getting an organized home. It's to become an organized person so that you transform your space to transform your life.
Hey, that's really good. I wanted to go back, which also kind of ties into what you're saying. Now, you said these people don't have systems, and you help them essentially create systems. And that's such like a key thing that you said there, because that's what we need. We need to create these new systems in order to make a change. The reason why we have this clutter and have these problems in our life is because we don't have a system to deal with them, or we don't have a system to bring us to where we want to be.
Or a system that works. I'm sure you've found this through coaching people through weight loss and exercise. Not every exercise is going to be for every body. So I identify their primary learning type. Are they a filer or a piler? And that allows me to prescribe the best organizational method specific to you, and then also consider their family in there too.
Exactly. And goes down to creating algorithms. So if this happens, then we do that. If I wake up tomorrow, then I do this. If this item is sitting on the kitchen counter, then I put it here.
Yeah, a clear pathway.
Yeah.
You know, I just had a session with a client yesterday who happens to be in this local area, because of the situation, we're working virtually. And she said, what I've come to realize is it's just a few minutes here and there to put something away. But when I haven't done it all these years, it adds up to now, and it adds up to me calling you. And so that is a big realization towards the life chaos section, where she's changing her outlook, changing her habits, and that's going to help her make that change stick.
I just want to share a quick story. I just thought of this. Back in the day, my room was not only messy, but it also had like too much stuff in it. Like it had the TV in there. I had like an Xbox. I had, I think I had plates and food wrappers. Clothes were everywhere. Instruments. It was like everything that I owned, everything that I did was in my room. Keyword, isolated. And that was a physical representation of how I isolated myself from the rest of the world.
Mm.
And yeah, as soon as I started to, break free of that shell, obviously that changed too.
Yeah, you gave yourself everything you needed, hobbies, all the basic needs, everything you needed, and you surrounded yourself with that. So whatever you were going on, what was going on for you at the time, depression, you mentioned anxiety, that probably cocooned you, made you feel comfortable until you were ready to break out of that. And then when you looked around, you saw how it was all surrounding you, and you were ready to change that.
Exactly. So do you work with anybody's vehicle or even yard?
Oh, interesting. Well, when I first started my business, I was doing home staging. So certainly we would talk about the curb appeal of a house and work on yards in that way.
Yeah.
Um, that would also get into a little more feng shui. And feng shui is like an ancient, over 3,000-year-old study of the movement of energy, qi, they call it. And so you can go as far as hiring a feng shui expert if you really want to bring that into your yard. And there are so many interesting and doable little tips, even just for your home and organizing to bring more abundance into your life, more energy, more chi. With the car, um, just the same as the house. Have everything you need in it and nothing else necessary. Here's a tip. Every time you walk out of your car, same as when you walk from room to room in your house, bring something with you that doesn't belong there. So if you did have a snack in the living room, if you went through the drive-through, you got a takeout cup, take it out when you're finished in that room or finished driving your car. And then you won't end up with piles of stuff. You won't have to have a Saturday morning where you're cleaning out your car.
Yeah. I, growing up, I used to have, I was one of those cars that would have like a sea of Tim's coffee cups in the back
Yes.
seat type thing. But I
Yeah,
definitely learned
wrappers
yeah,
and certainly parents. Oh my gosh, I see it. They're like, "Oh, please don't look at the car." And there's like, you know, uh, goldfish crackers crumbled up and spills and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, um,
Cheerios. Yeah. You
those.
actually, we spend a lot of time in the car. So, it always feels good to clean it out and to
Oh yeah.
have it nice and organized for
And
when.
maintain your car. I know I just took mine in. Ouch, the bill, but I do have an older car. But maintain it because it does feel good. It supports you in where you want to go. So I just try to do that with all of my things, so that the things that I have, I'm showing that I value them, and then they support me in my life. I'm not going to be broken down on the side of the highway in the cold with my car. You know.
Hey, they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So
Oh,
if you don't take care of that little mess in your car right away, even if it's just a coffee cup, chances are that's reflecting in other aspects of your life. You might be not taking care of things right away in your job or in your
mhm.
relationship or with your kids or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have some questions from my own curiosity. I don't know if you can answer them, but let's say somebody is experiencing trouble with organizing their finances. What is the
Mhm.
typical thing you usually see in their home that reflects that?
Oh, that's a great question. And that came up with a recent client in her form that she filled out, her questionnaire. And so I gave her exercises to um, feel more abundant financially. So that's one thing I coached her on. With regards to what I would see is usually something to do with papers, an overabundance of papers, a real disorganization of papers, keeping years and years backlog of papers and bills that you really no longer need. So that's where I'll usually see it. You might also see it in over shopping or overspending on whatever it is that they love.
Okay, and that could be also manifested into like clutter of excess things that they don't need type thing.
Yeah, like a lot of clothes, even with the tag still on, that kind of thing could be. And I don't know. And it can go in the opposite direction too, depending on how, if there's a fear over lack of finances, then what you'll see is the just in case clutter. Stuff that really they don't love, they never even loved because somebody gave it to them for free because they always feel at need and they feel a lack. So they hang on just in case I lose my job, just in case something happens, just in case the other one breaks, I'll have another one. And yet they don't even like half of this stuff. And it causes so much clutter. And then they can't find that thing when they need it because there's too much.
That's really interesting. What's your idea, or what's your outlook on junk drawers?
Oh, well, it's better than a junk room. And
Exactly. Yeah.
if you have a pretty big house and a family, it's going to happen, or it can happen. Nothing wrong with it if it's not really causing a big, crazy problem in your life. But that's something you could tackle in an hour or less. You just haul it all out, dump it on the counter, and then you get some sort of organizational, double slider container thing from Staples or a big box store. And you just sort everything out like into like. Usually what happens in a junk drawer is everything gets piled in there. The takeout menus,
Oh
the
yeah.
hammer, kids' hair bands. Like it's
It,
just, it's a whole junk thing.
yeah.
So
It starts off with a little bit of organization, and then it just goes out of control.
piles. Yeah.
And that happens with rooms too. That this is a
Oh,
common
yeah.
thing. You see spare rooms where people just shove everything in.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure. And then they
and
close that door and don't go in that room.
that must be something that you help people with a lot, because pretty much everybody's house you go to, there's some kind of room where they just shove everything in.
Well, I like to bring them to the awareness of square footage, and you're paying for that square footage, either in your mortgage, your taxes, your rent, and you've just cut off part of it with storage. You've basically made it into a storage unit if you're really not using it and you've got it closed off. So if you're worried about lack and you're keeping all this stuff, well, what about accessing your whole house to live your whole life the way you want it and enjoying every room that you're paying for? You're paying for that space.
That's a really good outlook. I never thought of it like that. That's cool.
I know, right?
Yeah. It sometimes it helps just to take a step back and look at things from different perspectives like that.
Yeah, like the money perspective.
Yeah. So if somebody is struggling with weight loss or even getting healthy, what are the typical things you see around their home that reflect that?
I'll see possibly 2 or 3 sizes within the clothes, so a lot of clutter in the clothes. I'll get to these clothes when I'm at my ideal weight. So
Ah,
there's a wish or a hope for that. And then a real guilt. So much guilt is in that closet, and regret. So what I'll joke, if we're at a joking place in a session with a client, is, do you want to open a closet of regret and guilt? Or do you want to open a closet of, look at me, I'm fabulous and everything I put on? And then certainly the kitchen. The kitchen is another area. So you might have an abundance of kitchen gadgets in there. So there's or abundance of recipes and recipe books. Once I find the ideal recipe and the ideal way to eat and the ideal way to cook, I will then be my ideal weight, rather than dealing with the real issue. We always want that little simple pill, right? So go out to the store and buy it is a lot easier than going to the gym and sweating for an hour.
exactly. That makes me think back to when I struggled with eating and weight loss problems or getting healthy. My cupboard would be disorganized, and it would be half the stuff not only would I never use or not touch for a long time, so that could be a bunch of non-perishables like cans or boxes of
Right? That
things
too.
yeah, and or supplements, or
Mhm.
even if you do have everything that you will use, they could just be in your cupboard completely disorganized. So you could have like the spices with the noodles and
That's
the
right.
supplements mixed in there. There's no organization. And to me, that was like kind of a reflection of, I have no idea where to start. Like, I don't know what I should be eating, what I should be taking. I kind of just do whatever, and I don't really have any sort of direction. And
Yeah, there's no method. Yeah,
another
so,
thing,
sorry, you bring up a great point that I forgot is pantries. An overabundance in the pantries and a lot of stuff is expired. Yeah.
yeah, expired stuff, and that could be in the fridge as well. Like maybe you always have food that goes bad because you're not paying attention to what you're eating and what you're consuming. And so if you're not paying attention to what you're consuming, that, obviously it's going to reflect as rotting food in your fridge.
Yeah, and
You're
if you're tired at the end of the week, you don't want to cook, so you go out with the family, let's go grab a pizza, you know?
uh, and another thing I'd like to bring up is I think a lot of people might struggle with laundry. Like maybe they have places to put their clothes, but they always just have it in baskets and they never take the time to put it away. Is that something you see a lot?
Absolutely. Either the laundry rooms aren't set up for success, or the systems, like you just mentioned, aren't followed through with, and the whole family isn't joining in when they could be. And usually that's a boundary thing where the main caregiver, if that's the mom, is still doing everything for everybody, because it's less of a struggle than trying to make them do it and teach them how to do it, and they're exhausted, so I get that. And it's just a feeling of overwhelm. When you're overwhelmed, even the basic things like laundry, it's too much. It's just too much on top of working full time, stress at work, uh, running the kids everywhere. So yeah, laundry's a big one.
Yeah, that's an important thing too, is like systems. But when you have a household family, including people as part of the system, and that's how we really function as a household, that's how we function as a society, is when we each have our own little part. And
Yeah.
even if you have kids, like they can, even if they're not going to do much, they can do little things like, okay, the laundry goes in this basket, and just have little systems like that so we all contribute.
Well, and have different systems for kids than adults. Adults will most will open a drawer, put their clothes away where they belong. They'll hang things on hangers. That's too much for kids, especially little kids. So you make it fun and you make it easy. So a quick tip for kids is kids and lids don't mix. So if you're going to have a laundry basket in their room, put a basketball hoop net over it, mounted on the wall with an open basket, no lid, for a laundry basket, and teach them and show them how to throw that laundry in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. Uh,
Open shelves, open cubbies, make it fun, make it playful, play music for them to, in 3 songs, you have to have your whole room tidied up, and then we get to have a movie or something.
Yeah, make everything fun. I think that's important for adults too, not even just kids. Even if you're just living alone by yourself or with a couple
Yeah,
or whatever, like
true.
just make things fun. Make life fun. We need to make things more interesting. We'll certainly be more apt to do them.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
one thing I wanted to touch base on was, and I asked you this before: is there such thing as too organized? And obviously there is. It's good to be really organized, but when it starts to cause a lot of anxiety and negative emotions, when something isn't always 100% perfect, quote unquote, that's when it can be an issue. Um, I'll share a story really quick. I have 3 kids, of course. They're 9, 6, and 4. And so obviously, and I only have them every other weekend and sometimes more. But so when they're over, of course, I'm used to living alone. They come over, my house is clean, and they have fun. And I'm feeding them. I'm trying to, so of course, be
Keep up with them.
present and spend time with them. And so one thing that I really learned is like, it's okay for things to be a little bit messy for a short period. You just have to remember that I'm going to take the time when this is over to take care of it, and try not to let it upset you, because you have to really remind yourself that I have to spend time with my kids. If I only see them every other weekend, I want to be 100% present. I want to have as much fun with them as I possibly can.
Mhm.
And it's okay to leave a dish on the counter so that I can spend time with them. It's like that exchange of things, but knowing that I'm going to take care of it as soon as I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing is, as parents, you have to decide what are your battles, what's important, and you've made a clear decision on what's most important. You have limited time, so you're going to make the most of it. If you're living with them full time, whether you're on your own, a single parent or not, eventually they have to learn that, oh, you just don't maintain the whole house yourself in every aspect of it. They do have to learn to do chores eventually.
yeah,
And
we can create, we can create the fun systems. That's all I was going to say.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So is there anything else you'd want to tell the audience? Anything you'd want to add to our conversation today?
No, just if we want to sum up of where people can reach me, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I guess first I'll ask you, what have you been doing lately with your spare time during this COVID-19? Like, what inspires you? What do you love to do with your time? What makes you feel most passionate
Um,
about living?
well, I love to start the morning with yoga, and I that that's not new for me. In fact,
Yeah,
a lot of my life hasn't changed during this time, except of course social activities and seeing friends, which I really miss.
yeah.
But my mornings always start the same. I get out, I meet myself on the yoga mat, and then I do some meditation, and then I have my yummy breakfast. I've been really loving going out for extended, longer walks because it is spring and I've got the time. I'm not like meeting up with some friends. So there's that. And I've really been hunkering down and getting some projects done with my business. Like I'm creating a free e-course, which I want to have out by Mother's Day. And that's a free like video course that I'm going to be putting out there. So I have time for some projects.
Hey, that's really exciting. I'm excited for all the stuff you're doing. It's really good, and I really hope people reach out to you. You're really gonna help a lot of people doing the online stuff, and of course, when you can get back in people's houses, you'll be doing that too.
Mhm.
One thing I remember from the last time is I asked you what inspires, and you said going for walks and nature. And the key thing that stuck out to me was you said nature is very organized, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and that's such a true thing because nature is organized. It knows what it's doing. I love there's a saying that within a seed, like that seed has an intention. That seed has a direction.
That's
It,
right.
it is intended to become a tree, right?
Mhm.
So, and it knows where it's going. And so we can really look to nature and learn a lot from it. And
So much so. The changing of the seasons, the fact that nature lets go. It lets go of all its beautiful leaves and then shuts down and closes in and quiets for the winter. It rejuvenates in spring. So that's why I love nature is it's always changing. And, there's so much fear of change and it's actually, we can't help but have it. So you might as well welcome it in.
hey, it's not just an end, it's a new beginning.
Yeah.
So this is a really good way to end this. And speaking of spring, it is spring cleanup. So, Kim, where can people find you?
Well, the simple way is just to go to my website, kimsneath.com. You can see my services listed there, some before and afters to inspire you, and testimonials from clients. But there's a simple little form on my Contact Me page. You can fill that out. We can have a free gift call. It's 30 minutes. It's just an authentic conversation, no strings attached, really to find out where you're at, where's the gap to where you want to be, and what I can offer for you to get there.
Oh, this is great. So go check out Kim, check out her website, look out for her new e-course. I will include all the links to her beautiful things in the description to her Facebook and her website. And thank you so much for Kim for coming on. I really appreciate it. What you do is certainly inspiring. It's transformative, and it's something that more people can add to their life.
Oh,
So
thanks so much, Jordan. It's a pleasure.
thank you.